So, hi everyone, welcome to the panel and thank you for being here. So, it's been a long week for everyone and we want to switch it up a little bit, right? So we will get rid of all the prepared questions and we will we will just free flow it and keep it short and spicy. And for every one of you down there who wants to learn more about the founders projects, we have 4 amazing founders here on the panel. So this will be an amazing opportunity to learn more about them and grab them for a conversation afterwards. So why don't we just start with like a 1-sentence quick introduction and tell everyone like roughly what is it that you're cooking?
I'm Michael, co-founder and CEO of Zero G. If you haven't heard of us, we're the largest AI layer 1.
I'm Anna, co-founder and CEO of OpenDataLabs, which is the research company behind Vana. We focus on the data part of the stack, unlocking data sets stuck in walled gardens to train better AI models.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Parr. I am co-founder of Yesnoerror, the AI agent auditing all of the world's scientific research papers for errors powered by Ionet. In the past, I was the editor of Mashable, and I've been in AI for over a decade at this point. My God.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben Fielding, co-founder and CEO of Gensyn. We're building the network for machine intelligence. So we connect all of the machine learning capable compute in the world and allow it to be used as a just common resource. So instead of having to connect to a cluster of GPUs to train a machine learning model, you can just use any of the world's compute power. That could be MacBooks, it could be GPUs, it could be TPUs, anything that's available in a similar protocol to TCP IP. It just sits across all devices and allows you to send neural networks to those devices and have them train at any scale.
Thank you so much. And the topic of the panel today is about cross-chain, building at the intersection of cross-chain and AI. And I feel there kind of has been a tension where like each blockchain is a self-enclosed sovereign system, whereas in building AI, we want a lot of things to be connected and to be operating and interoperating in the real time. So I guess what do you see from a technical perspective is the biggest challenge or the biggest blocker of building, if any, building AI for the cross-chain world? And how does your team solution or how does your company come about that?
There's like 3 questions in that. So why don't we just take one of them? So from our perspective, if you're building in Web 2 AI, for example, you go to OpenAI, you've got a bunch of APIs, you've got fine-tuning, you've got inference, you've got a bunch of different types of models you can select. Very easy builder experience. You come to Web 3 and AI, all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, which verification methodology am I going to use? Is it OPML, ZKML, do you use TEs? How do I do fine-tuning even? Like which services are actually delivering it in a permissionless way? Which GPU resources do I use? And you have like all these decision trees, and before you know it, you have like 10 different services you need to put together. So I think the biggest challenge is to create a one-stop shop solution where you can utilize all of Web3's magnificent brain trust and have it in one place. And so we like to be kind of that center place, if you will. But we're also building in a very modular fashion so that if you don't want to natively deploy in our layer 1, deploy in our layer 2 somewhere, you can absolutely do it. Use our storage layer, use just our inference layer. Maybe you just want to use fine-tuning with the ELIZA framework, totally fine. So I think the modularity aspect matters a lot too.
Yeah, I guess from Vana's perspective, we focus really on that data piece. I think in the same way that we've seen DeFi play out across different chains where DeFi builders want to build where there's TVL, right? They want to know where is their liquidity. I think in an AI world, what people care about is data liquidity. Like where is the data that I can train better and better AI models on? And so the thing that we care about the most is really having that data liquidity on chain. And so what is total data value locked? How do you bring as much data in and make it really accessible and interoperable? From an interoperability perspective, so Vana is EVM compatible, designed to work with private data. So it doesn't work that well to do any of the data operations on another chain. But if you already have a data token, you're able to kind of bridge that over. And you can use any EVM compatible wallet to kind of permission out your data.
So for context on us, we are an accidental viral sensation that happened in December. It's funny because my co-founder was actually in crypto in 2013. He built ZapChain, one of the very first social networks for crypto. It's actually where Ethereum first launched. But we haven't been in it for a couple of years. We built an AI company in Web 2, And then Yesnoerror went viral because he attached a token to it from Pump Fund. That's the actual truth. But it's been interesting from the perspective because like we've tracked all these kind of things, and I think the actual issues like technically is not the thing that I'm concerned about. It's the political side actually. The politics of each individual L1 of each individual group, and just how much they do not want you to build anything on top of the other, and how much like the back end notes of like, you know, if you do this, you will go and get nuked. Because we're not like, we're independent of any, we don't have any preference for any specific chain. We want to go and build whatever is best across multiple things. Like my co-founder was in Y Combinator with Brian Armstrong. We have a long relationship with him, and Base and other things. We're just playing around with what's best. The politics is, I think, the hardest part that causes more of the issues, and there's more of the consideration than the technical side, honestly.
I think we might be a little bit different from everybody here because we solve AI infrastructure problems predominantly. So we're here in crypto for a technical solution, basically. We need to solve a trust problem, which is incredibly expensive in the centralized world. And so we connect together AI hardware, machine learning hardware, and allow it to be used at massive scale. But when you do that, you need to be able to trust the device that you're sending a machine learning model to. And the traditional world, the centralized world, does this with companies, legal contracts, courts, judges, trust, like reputation, etc. So when you interact with AWS, you think that they're going to do the work that you've asked them to do because they have a huge reputation, because you do have a legal contract with them, because you could theoretically, if you wanted to, sue them through the courts for not delivering on that contract. And so what we want to do is replace that entire infrastructure with code, make it completely programmatic and therefore far more efficient. And that's what the crypto space is very good at. It gives us programmatic trust that we can apply over code, over programmatic networks. So the vast majority of the problems that we solve are actually on the other side. They're on the machine learning side. How do we take these weird, stochastic, massive off-chain machine learning execution tasks and prove them onto a chain so that we can use the chain as a source of trust and disintermediate that kind of company, that legal contract, that court system, those judges, etc. And so some of the big problems we focus on solving are building a compiler for machine learning so that devices look the same to a machine learning model. If you wanted to train a model right now on a GPU and a MacBook, it would look very different, and it's actually quite hard to do. So our compiler stack allows that to look identical. Those devices can interoperate. We also build communication frameworks so the devices can talk to each other. That doesn't need to involve a chain at all. It's just peer-to-peer communication. And then finally, we build a verification system. So when those devices are talking to each other, they're doing execution of bits of machine learning models. Maybe one of them does half of it, the other does the other half. They can trust each other without ever having a person involved, because cryptographic, probabilistic, game theoretic proofs all settle at a chain. But for us, that's why crypto exists. We need that chain as the source of truth.
Thank you. I really like how we talk about like both the technical part and the social part of the fragmentation, and how like there is this tribalism going on between these different layer ones, right? Like, and that's preventing a lot of liquidity, both in terms of money and also in terms of talent. And on that, I want to ask this question about developers, right? So how, because I feel today most people have just self-identify, I'm a Solana developer, I'm like a Monad ecosystem, or I build on the base ecosystem. How do you think like AI or like the stacks we are building hopefully will change that, or will it change that? And what do you feel is the developer experience, like building your ecosystem or building on your stack? I feel that would be an interesting question, because most of the people on this panel have just launched or is about to launch like the product or the developer access.
I think maybe two answers to this, and one is like the complete opposite of the other, so a bit contradictory. But one, I think you're always going to have tribalism within developer groups, just because you learn a particular kind of skill, framework, API, SDK, etc. And once you've learned that, it's hard to learn another one. So you kind of get sucked into that ecosystem, and once you're there, you get the kind of knowledge to, in many ways, I mean, in crypto makes this explicit, sort of level up within that ecosystem. So once you've done that, I think you're very tied into it. So in any arena, in the AI world, we have this as well with different frameworks. People attach themselves to frameworks. Probably the most obvious thing is like PyTorch versus TensorFlow versus JAX. You get some kind of militant people who will be like, I will only ever use TensorFlow, or I'll only ever use PyTorch. In reality, it's probably just because they picked it up first and then didn't pick up the other one, and then they kind of attach themselves to it. So that's the kind of answer I would give maybe 6 months ago. The answer I would give now, though, is with AI coding tools, that probably doesn't matter as much because those tools can take all of the weird syntax rules away. They can handle that. They can take an SDK and they can figure out what to do. And you actually have this kind of like intent-based coding system where a developer can sit down and they can explain to this system what they want to happen, and then that can just happen. So I think that's going to be a huge change for the crypto space in general, because being like a Solana developer and knowing the Rust frameworks and things versus building in Solidity, actually a developer should be able to just do both quite easily by sitting in front of Cursor or something like that and just explaining what they want to happen. They still need to know the fundamentals most likely, but they don't need to know the format and the structure and the syntax, etc.
I will second that as someone who has been on like very deep in the Web 2 side of AI as well. So for additional context, my co-founder and I also run a $25 million pre-seed seed stage AI venture fund. Somehow we're allowed to do that while running 2 AI companies. I don't know why. And so we've written 13 checks. We have this company, for example, called Alex. It is Cursor for Xcode. You can build entire mobile apps by just yelling at the AI, and it is so good at it. And we just did this deal with Khosla Ventures. It is just, there's this I guess my point is like I'm seeing kind of like 2 types of developers coming out because of these tools. You have this developer who's been a developer for a while and is like trained in the classical way. And then you have this new type of developer who's really embracing AI tools, or they're not even a developer really before, but they're getting really good at being able to launch products really quickly. And we meet founders all the time who are able to go and like hack things together and do that and like get actual customers, build actual markets. It is insane what you can do. In fact, my co-founder built an entire course platform to teach people how to code with AI. It's called startupspeedrun.com for anyone who wants to learn how to code with Cursor, by the way. Matt Beta is the code if you want to get in. So it's called startupspeedrun.com. Matt Beta is the code to get access. It is great. That was just like we wanted to teach more people how to code because it is so accessible now. And so like I do think you're going to see this shift. And there's like, it depends on certain things. I find, for example, that most developers don't have strong identity to any of the large language models, for example. You know, a lot of the platforms will just allow you to switch out the large language platform while you're developing with it. And different of these large language models are just better at different things. Like the new Anthropic Claude 3.7 is incredible at coding. And Anthropic is the model I use when I want to write. But deep research from OpenAI is fucking cool. Who's used deep research here? Anyone? If you haven't, go fucking use deep research. I literally figured out like what properties to go and buy in Thailand and go and like and figure out what the prices of things are. The thing is incredible. You don't need McKinsey consultants or any of this shit. You could learn entirely how to build an L1 if you do jack shit about crypto by just talking to OpenAI and deep research all the time. And Perplexity
I don't think it's that easy, but
I know. It takes time. You'd be yelling at it forever. Okay, fine. I will concede that one. That might be a bit too far.
yeah,
but you
no,
can get
you've
you
never
can
built an L1 before.
you can get much closer than you could before at understanding how lots of things work with it.
10% closer.
We can you see we're having the spicy talk right here.
Maybe on the L1 side, something we found is a lot of the work involved in standing things up is also kind of on the DevOps side, which I feel like AI hasn't quite gotten down yet, but is getting there. To the question of developer ecosystem, in terms of the Vana ecosystem, there are 20 live data DAOs on mainnet, from like Tesla data to Twitter data to Reddit, 23andMe. I'd say the majority of the developers, they're not as much coming from Web3. Like some of them are more Web2 AI devs who want a specific data set. Some of them come from the BitTensor ecosystem. So they have less of this allegiance and are maybe a little bit more practical of like, this is the way that I'm able to aggregate a private data set. I do think you end up building a very kind of like a broader culture across your ecosystem. And I think that culture is people who really care about like data sovereignty and data ownership, which is the focus of the project. That is kind of the supply side, right, of aggregating data. But then there's also the demand side of buying data. And on that side, people really don't care where the data comes from. They just are like, this is the data set I want. They actually probably would rather they don't necessarily want it to come from a data DAO. They just want to be able to get it. Most Web2 companies don't even know what a data DAO is, which is kind of like a labor union for data. I think that a lot of the tribalism that exists today. It's good because it brings communities together and kind of helps to accelerate things. And I think it forms over time. But what we've seen to date with Vana is it's more like, okay, if you care a lot about data sovereignty, this is probably where you're building. Also, from a pragmatic perspective, it has the tooling that you need.
Yeah, I'll take a bit of a different perspective. I want people to build on 0G to have a religious experience. I'm kind of kind of saying this jokingly, but literally one of the advices I got when I was going through YC, and one of our first investors, Alex Ohanian, who started Reddit, basically told me is like, hey, your job is to build a cult. And literally every L1 is trying to build a cult, and that's why you have this tribalism, is because you're joining a community for belonging, you're joining a community for fun, you're joining a community for memes, and then you have all of these types of aspects where you're like, oh, I now self-identify with this particular chain. And so it's a way of creating network effects. And so that's why we see some of it. And so I'm not quite sure. Maybe if all developers start becoming AI agents, then it might not be as much of an issue. But if we still have human developers, I think this will consistently be a theme.
Yeah, I think, Michael, you have kind of answered my next question. And I was like listening into you guys talk, and I have this like visualization in my head, and like going forward, maybe the open or the open source AI stack will be these little bricks that people can pick and choose, and they can match together to become a good product. And in that world, right, like each protocol will kind of think about what is my competitive advantage, right? Or like else, otherwise phrased, as founders, I wonder what is your like North Star metrics, or like what is the metrics or the goal that you are optimizing for to like make your product appealing and competitive in this like very fast evolving world of products?
I think for us, it's really clear. Basically, we want all of the machine learning execution in the world to go via our protocol. So when you execute a machine learning operation, so a matrix multiplication or a floating point operation or something like that, when your CPU, your GPU, your TPU executes that operation, we want that to have been triggered by the Gensyn protocol, because that becomes the most efficient way for this to happen over the entire world. So we don't necessarily think about like, why would a developer come to Gensyn? What's the kind of extra stuff around that they get which would keep them in? We think actually the execution will go through us. That's the point. And so for Gensyn specifically, it's less about kind of building the chain with the most attractive kind of inflation rewards or anything like that, the most attractive chain components. And it's more about just making sure that execution of machine learning operations is the most efficient and most effective it can possibly be. And I think, like you said, each protocol, each project, it needs to have a product, right? It needs to do something for the user. The user needs to be there for some reason. And I think in the crypto world, those reasons are constantly hidden. There's lots of smoke and mirrors in front of them. There's lots of trying to make your community attractive for reasons that are outside of it having a real product and having a real reason why somebody with money comes to it and wants to exchange that money for some value. So for us, we always think at that lowest level. Somebody wants to buy a machine learning operation. Somebody wants to pay to have that be performed on a device in the world, and they'll do that through Gensyn. And it's as simple as that.
First of all, I can hear Alexis Ohanian's words. He would exactly tell people, go and build a cult. Because he is right. That is what he did with Reddit. Did such a good job with it. So for Yesnoerror, like, we built it as an AI for public good, right? Our goal is to go through all 90 million research papers published in the world and audit them and find especially math errors, but other types of errors. And so the metrics for that are pretty clear, and we put them on the website really publicly. They are, what percentage of papers have we gone through? What is the error rate? And then for us, the most important one is how correct is our AI model at detecting these errors? It's really good at detecting math errors. So shockingly good. We've emailed researchers about it, and not a single one has been like, you were wrong on that. It's not yet as good at other types of errors, like figure errors or contextual errors. It does a good job, but for us to really do the job correctly, we need to be at, almost no false errors. And that's a big focus for us, as well as scaling it up. It costs 15 cents to $3 right now to audit a paper, depending on the size, depending on the structure. Is it a PDF? They're all different formats. And we need to make it so that it's cheaper and cheaper, and that it can go through more and more and more quickly. And then we need to also just make it so that that there's even more utility to the token for the things we want to do. You know, we're coming out with more functionality to like, you know, be able to audit papers even before you publish them. Because like, I think in the end, the North Star is for us, like, will the scientific community be like, this was really useful? And did we actually do a positive good in the world? Did we actually prevent, you know, major scientific errors from changing our society for the worse?
So one of our guiding use cases is a user-owned foundation model where you have 100 million users who all contribute their data from across different platforms, pull it together, and you actually have a bigger sort of data treasury than any single Web 2 company has, right? If you look at kind of leading AI models today, they have around 15 trillion words, and that they're training on, that's the whole public internet. It's around 15 trillion words. If you want to make better AI models, you need access to more data. So we track basically how far are we towards that goal of 100 million users who've contributed. We're about 1% of the way there. And then also, how much is that data actually being used and accessed, right? If you have just a bunch of data that's sitting there but not actually being used, then it's not very useful. So seeing the commercial success of data DAOs, DLP Labs has built a Tesla data DAO where they're actually selling data to a few different car battery companies, and they use that data to forecast and kind of understand how car batteries degrade. So seeing the commercial success of data DAOs, seeing the founders raise venture backing if that's what they want to do, or generate revenue from their data.
Our mission at Zero G is to make AI a public good, and so we intend to remove all barriers for that to happen. This is why we've raised more than $300 million. This is why we have an $88 million ecosystem fund, because we want to attract the right type of builders that care about this particular issue.
Thank you, everyone. I think we're about time, but thank you so much for your participation. And yeah, let's take a picture, shall we?
Thanks.
Thank you.